Hey everybody, it's Jackie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another Keanu Reeves movie review for you. Today we're going back to the year 2000 and we're going to talk about The Replacements. The Replacements is a movie that has stood the test of time. It features Gene Hackman, and Keanu took a pay cut just to get Gene in the movie, and he does a great job as the coach of a replacement team because the pro football players are on strike because they want $8 million and the owners aren't going to give it to them. They're currently making $7 million and that's all they want to do. So Hackman, the coach's name is Jimmy McGinty. He has got a very short time to put together a team of replacement players to finish the season. So he goes over with people that he's watched in the past. So we have Shane Falco as the quarterback. He's played by Keanu Reeves, and he is currently scraping barnacles off of boats. Then we have two brothers, one who had made a football team and one who didn't. So they're playing linemen. Then we have a Welsh kicker named Nigel who owns a pub but has a gambling and drinking problem and likes to smoke on the field. He is a great player. Then we have a Japanese sumo wrestler who is a wall to run into, and he's a lot of fun. Then we have Orlando Jones. His character's name is Eddie, and Eddie can run faster than everybody else. It's just a great, we've got a deaf guy who would have been on a football team, except for he can't hear, but he plays fantastic. He doesn't need to hear. It's just a great team. Then we have the head of the cheerleaders. She is played by Brooke Langton, and she curiously looks like Sandra Bullock in Speed. If you watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. But anyway, she puts together, she has cheerleader tryouts, and there's some really horrible, and then the rest are strippers. So she puts together a great team, and so the movie opens up with the replacement players pulling up on a school bus and actually seeing their football heroes throwing eggs at the bus, and they're just like, oh, they want to get their autographs, and they don't realize all the hate that's being rained down on them with the eggs and everything. So, and when Shane pulls up, he accidentally parks in the quarterback's spot, and the team comes out and promptly flips his truck and spray paints scab on it. So it's there's conflict immediately between the pro players and the replacement players. So after they get to the stadium and they have their first practice, it's a disaster. Eddie is dropping balls. The players are fighting the Japanese wrestlers, being called Chinese, and then he's saying the N-word, and everybody is getting into a fight. And so it's just a disaster. But we also find out that Keanu Reeves can really throw the football. So that was, I guess, before he did this movie, he didn't know he could do, but he actually throws the football very well. So that was really interesting. Now, after the practice, because his truck is upended in the parking lot, the head cheerleader Anabelle decides she offers him a ride home, and she gives him a knuckle biting ride home. This is a great scene in this movie, one of the first of many, but you could tell Keanu is scared to death, hanging on for his life, and she's driving this thing up over sidewalks and around people, and just I don't know how this is a great scene. It was filmed very well, and she does. He can't wait to get out of that Jeep, I'm sure. And she takes him home to his houseboat, where he lives, and he services his customers by cleaning the barnacles off his boats. That's his job. All the other football players, they've got. One has gotten out of prison, another one worked at an auto manufacturing plant, one works at Mini Mart. None of them want to go back to the jobs, and this is the thing in life, that these players have got a second chance for glory, because they all used to play and they all had their chance, and athletes don't get second chances, but these guys do, and that's why this is such a great story. So after Anabelle drops him off at his houseboat, he invites her in for a beer, and she throws up a wall and says she doesn't date players. So Shane is constantly being blocked by Anabelle, but he keeps trying. And she works at a bar named Max, which I guess belonged to her family, because she said since she was 5 years old, she used to watch the games. Her dad always told her football stories. So she actually knows what's going on. And they have, because she's friends with a cheerleader, so the upcoming game is against Detroit on Sunday, and she is friends with a cheerleader for Detroit who told her about a player breakup and that he might be a good target on Sunday for Shane. And so it's really interesting, her character, because she knows she's very football oriented, and she understands the game perfectly, and she knows what's going on, and she has inside information. So Anabelle as the head cheerleader is a great character in this movie. So anyways, they go on and they play the game on Sunday, and it's a disaster. It's like the practice. They're dropping passes, they're fighting, it's not good, and the owner of the team is not impressed. But anyway, so they lose the game. So after the game, they go to the bar and they're drinking their sorrows, and in walks Eddie Martell, the pro quarterback, with the pro team, and they start picking on the deaf player, and the deaf player writes a note to Shane that it's a good thing he's deaf because he can't hear what the a-hole is saying, and the pro player says, what is he writing? And Shane lets him know that he's an a-hole, and then Eddie decks Shane, and then a bar fight ensues because one of the players is a combat veteran, and he just loves to tackle people. So Shane has him tackle, and the bar brawl scene that's like the second great scene of the movie. It's just they're all fighting, and it's wonderful. So the whole team gets thrown in jail, and that's where they really start bonding, because the Japanese sumo wrestler starts and Jamal, they start, hey, that was a great throw, and yeah, you really, so they really start bonding over the brawl. So that's good. They're all in jail, and then Eddie's character, who was hiding behind the jukebox during the brawl, he was the only one who didn't participate in the brawl. He starts singing I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. If you remember that song, I mean, that was a big hit back in the day. But anyways, so the guys all start line dancing to I Will Survive in the jail cell. So that was hysterical, and that was like the third great scene of the movie. So there's so much fun in this movie that even in 2020, it's fun. It's fun if you like football, because then during the games, you have Pat Summerall and John Madden as themselves calling the game. And it's just like, that was a surprise, and that was a treat. And then all the development of each of the players' characters, they're all individually great as well. Even though I don't recognize any of the stars who played the players, they were all great. And then even the cheerleaders were really funny. There was one cheerleader, she had long blonde hair like Ariana Grande style with a ponytail, and her name was Heather, and she was played by Sarah Ann Morris, I think, and she stole the scene in every cheerleader scene. So anyways, after the bar fight, and they all get out of jail, Gene Hackman comes in, the coach, Jimmy, and he says if he ever sees another bar brawl, there will be no team, but he says he would have given anything to seeing Eddie Martell, the pro QB, get decked. So that was really, really cute. So then the next game coming up, they're getting ready for that, and let me check my notes on that to make sure I'm going in order here. Oh yeah, so after that, before that game, Anabelle, the head cheerleader, had heard about the brawl, so she drove over to the houseboat to check on Shane to make sure he was okay. And he didn't know if his cuts and bruises were from the game because he got clobbered or if they were from the fight. So she had some wild yam salve that, you know, that's the first time we get see a little bit of Keanu's skin as she's rubbing this on him, and you know, and he's polite and thank you and everything. And that's the first time we see Anabelle start to thaw out toward him, and she offers him a ride in, but he had got his truck flipped back over, so he was good there. And she had to go to Max to bartend, so she left, and then Keanu goes back for his second practice and parks in a different parking spot, but again the pro team is there to flip his truck once again, and he was like, wow, you know, I parked somewhere else, what's going on? And they go and they flip his truck up again, but this time the brothers, number 72 and 73, are there, and they are backing their quarterback, and they pull out a gun and they start shooting Martell's Porsche up, which was so great because his team was behind him now, and they're like, that's our quarterback, we're going to stand behind him and put his truck back. So they flip Shane's truck right side up, and then he's like, yeah, and you better wax it too. And it was great. So the guys go in for their second practice, and they get told that if anybody has any firearms, they need to turn them in. And that was a great scene too, watching the team stand up for him and both teams come together, and then they shut him down. So that was really fun. So I like that scene. So they practiced, and then now it's time for the next game. And so they go and they play that game, and I believe they almost lose. Let's see. Oh, no. Okay, so that's the San Diego game. So that game is, so they're trying to play the game, and the cheerleaders keep doing like stripper moves. So they look over at the cheerleaders, and there's like two girls dancing together, and they're just like kind of, you know, got their hands on each other and making really, you know, stripper moves. And the players can't concentrate, and it's so funny because the mothers in the stands are yelling, the men in the stands are waving dollar bills and signs, who's your daddy, and the girls are really hamming it up, and the other players can't concentrate. So the replacement team wins the San Diego game with the help of the cheerleaders, and actually that was some hysterical funny stuff. So that was another great scene in the movie. So that was amazing. So after that game, let me see, what happens next? I forgot. Oh, and when they won the game too, I gotta tell you this. Nigel, the kicker, who's the Welsh guy with the pub who smokes, he goes out on the field and kicks a field goal while he's smoking. And it's so funny because he, in the locker room, anytime this guy's on the field, he's always smoking, and it's so cool because Madden's like, is that guy smoking? He's like, yeah, he's smoking. But I mean, that's just part of it. Again, all the characters are very well fleshed out, and that was a lot of fun. So then, okay, so after that game, Shane goes over to Max, the bar where Anabelle works at, and because she had invited him for a beer, and he came over to visit, and there were people who had watched the game that were still there, so they left, and they said, oh, you're Shane Falco, you guys kicked ass, that was a great game, and he thanked them, and then they left. And so I got to visit with Anabelle a little bit because he keeps trying with this girl, and she keeps shutting him down. So they start to have a little bit of a beer, but then she says it's getting late, and so he's got to go, and he kisses her on the cheek, and he starts to leave, and I was just like, God, what's wrong with this girl, man? Does she not know it's Keanu Reeves? I mean, come on. But anyways, so yeah, he starts to leave, and then she starts to come around the bar. She's finally starting to warm up, and then he goes back in, and he's like, well, what, you know, and then Madden goes off in his head, you know, and he's calling the plays for, you know, is he gonna go for it? And then he does go for it. He finally kisses Anabelle, and then Madden goes, he scores. So, and then it shows, and then Shane laying on his back, and then it goes right from Anabelle's kiss to the next game. So the next game Anabelle didn't go to because it's an out-of-town game. The cheerleaders don't go to out-of-town games. So Shane asked if he could see her after the game, and she said yes before he left. So then it cuts to the next scene of that game, and they're playing that game, and it gets down to the wire again, but this time Shane throws a pass, and I guess that's Shane's thing, is that he always chokes at the end of the game. So, and that's what's happening. It gets down to the wire. It's a 1-point game. Last time Nigel kicked the field goal and saved the game. This time Shane's going to throw a pass, and he throws the pass, but it's a bad pass. It gets tipped, and luckily when it came down, one of his guys caught it, so they did win, but just because of luck, not because it was a good play. So because of that, although he won, they decided, well, what happened was the pro players, 2 of them crossed the picket line, one being the quarterback and another guy. And because the quarterback was going to come back and play, and the owner decided to cut Shane from the team, the owner's name was O'Neill, he decided to cut Shane because he always chokes at the end. So even though they won the game, they decided to cut him because Dallas's big game was coming up, and he wanted his pro quarterback who had won 2 Super Bowl rings to play instead of the replacement player. So anyways, Shane goes to practice, and he's practicing and practicing because he knows it was a bad play. But while he's practicing, the Gene Hackman's character Jimmy, the coach, comes and actually cuts him from the team, lets him know that Eddie's coming back and he's going to be playing the game and that he's been cut. So that's sad, but he understands it's for the good of the team. So afterwards, after he gets done practicing, he goes to the end zone, which is a club that all the cheerleaders and all the players are partying at, and they're having a great time. They're all hooking up. All the cheerleaders are hooking up with all the players, and Shane has to go in and tell him that he has been cut from the team. So he goes and he tells Nigel, and Nigel stops the party. Shane tells him he's been cut, and they all toast him, but it's very, very sad. So after that, Eddie sees Shane clearing out his locker in the locker room, and he says, hey, you know, you really ought to leave Anabelle alone. You're just an anchor. You're weighing her down. You know, you're not even a has-been. You're a never was, and really makes him feel bad. So what he winds up doing is standing up Anabelle for their date. And so it was really, really sad because she's at the bar, she's lit candles, she's waiting for him, and the candles are burning down, and it's very sad, and she's crying, and he stands her up because of what this guy said to him, and he's just goes back to his houseboat and he's staring at the ocean. So that was a very, very sad scene because, I mean, Anabelle finally let down her wall because she says she never dates football players. She finally decides to date one, and he stands her up. But, I mean, it was because of what Eddie, you know, he got cut from the team, and then what Eddie said to him, so he was in no mood, and he didn't even call her anything. So that was very sad. But anyways, so that's that. So then it goes to the big game. Dallas is the big game, and everybody is, the pro quarterback comes out, and he's very, in the locker room, he was disrespecting everybody and calling them, you know, replacement players, and so they didn't want to play with him because Shane was the heart of the team, and that's what the coach told Shane when he cut him. He said, well, you know, you've got heart, and that's what the team needs. But the owner wanted the pro player to come back, and so the coach had he had to cut him. So anyways, they're playing the game, and they don't want to play with this guy. He's being a jerk, so they're not playing well. They're dropping passes, they're letting players get hit, they're letting the quarterback get hit. It's a disaster. So at halftime of the big game, I think it was like 17-0. And the coach was asking the quarterback, hey, what are you doing? Because he's not playing the plays that he called, and the quarterback said, hey, I play like I want to play, not what you call. So he's basically dissing the coach. Now, Shane had done a couple plays that weren't in the playbook either, but they worked out, and the coach just let him do it because, I mean, the replacements are only going to play for as long until the strike's over. So, but the coach didn't like this spoiled, overpaid quarterback talking down to him like that. So at halftime, he said he was being interviewed at halftime about what they needed to do to get back into the game, and he said that they needed heart. Well, of course, Shane is at home on the houseboat, and he's watching the game, and he hears his coach say, hey, that they need heart. So miraculously, he gets to the locker room before the third quarter, and he suits up, and the coach tells the pro quarterback that he's done, and all the other players throw him out of the locker room, and so that takes care of that. So they come back out for the third quarter with Shane, and Madden's like, oh, there's Shane. He looks like he's going to play, which of course he does. And of course then all the players are clicking on all cylinders, and they make great plays, and they make the blocks, they get back in the game, and it's just a wonderful thing. And well, the first thing he does when he runs out on the field is he runs over and he kisses Anabelle, and he apologizes. And then she gives him what's going on in the game about how he should make the play because of where they're weak at. So she gives him a little tip before he gets back in there. Well, he's making great passes, great plays. He's pulled a couple plays out that he made up himself. And they win the game, and it's amazing. And then they do the line dance in the end zone of all of them with I Will Survive. So it's a great movie. I highly recommend it, whether you're into just comedy. It's very funny scenes all the way through it. If you're into football, it's great to see Madden and Pat Summerall actually call the games. If you're into the cheerleaders, they were funny. They had their part in the movie. They were very, very good. And every character was very well developed. The deaf guy, the sumo wrestler, the two brothers, the guy who used to play for Minnesota who just got out of prison, the guy who drops the balls. They're just all the guy who was a service guy, a service veteran, and who just knocked people over. It was a great movie. I highly recommend it. It's 20 years old, but if you're in dealing with the COVID-19 and you're looking for some entertainment, I highly recommend 2020's The Replacements with Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. It's a fantastic film. So if you like Keanu Reeves movies, I've got about 20 or 30 that I'm going to do reviews on, just from a female fan who used to work at Paramount Pictures back in the day. It's a lot of fun, and I hope to see you back. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.